you'll walk forward. If not, you'll stay back. People need to get over slavery.
All right, so I guess I started off. I mean, we all know that slavery was a terrible thing.
Yes.
It was an atrocity.
Right.
It was a human tragedy. But
Yes.
we can't just be talking about slavery every day. It ended in 1865. This is 2020. We got to press forward. Our ancestors, they went through a lot. They died for us to be able to be here right now.
Yes.
And the best country on planet Earth.
Yes.
Take advantage of what we have right now, rather than looking in the past and saying, oh, well, woe was me because of slavery.
Right.
You know, there have been other groups of people in slavery all throughout the world. They can't just stay in that state. So people, a lot of times, they stay right in their place, and others are being able to pass them because mentally they've moved on while others have not.
They constantly use slavery to put them in a victim mentality. We can't accomplish this because you enslaved my ancestors. Slaves were taught English. Slaves were taught how to become managers and secretaries and cooks and chauffeurs and how to build water tanks and all sorts of things. We're here now.
Yeah, okay. All right. I really think, honestly, colonialism didn't teach us anything because we came from a society that was living and running. So I don't think we need to get over slavery. I think we need to talk about the repercussions of it, like generational trauma, like the system that exists because of it. I don't think we should use it as a crutch
There you
to,
go.
as for ambivalence, or to hold yourself back. You know what I mean? I think it is a mindset as well.
I think one of the most dangerous aspects of generational advancement is misinformation. I think a lot of young people, especially young men, especially young African-American men and women, often have questions about why things are the way they are. Why do I get treated this way? Why has my mother gone through this? Or why has my grandmother gone through this? Well, it all comes down to the repercussions of slavery. And so I think that just getting over something, I think, is just absolutely ridiculous. And so when I hear people say that, especially my fellow African-American people and friends, I think it's ridiculous. Just getting over something as serious as that, I think just plays into the whole idea of it just didn't matter anyway.
So how long do we continue to harp on it? How long do we continue? Forever?
Well,
do we never get over it?
Oh, do you mean educate? Well, educate is
education is fine. That's to know history is one thing. To not get over a thing is something else.
Crutch.
You can't minimize slavery.
Who says that though?
But I listened to both of you, and I even thought maybe I'll stay out of this one.
No.
But the notion of ending the discussions on slavery, they haven't begun. We just got the lynching memorial in Alabama. We just got the African American Smithsonian in DC. You cannot go to Germany and walk more than a mile without seeing some sort of tribute to the Holocaust, some sort of apology, some sort of marker. The United States does not acknowledge slavery in that way. We are beginning to discuss, but we can't get over it until white folks acknowledge it.
Being Black should not influence a political.
What do you want?
Want a job that I don't hate. What did you?
Why are you upset? What's happening? No worries. I thought they could hear that. Hello, hello, hello. I have somehow managed in that 2-minute clip to already upset Mr. Toussaint Warner. Hey, Two, how you doing?
Blessed and highly favored. But you didn't upset me. Those Negroes.
We already got too upset. But let me actually do a proper intro. Hey, ITZ, it is Chantel. Yes, I'm running solo dolo. Brian's too busy being a socialite, and Gina had some events to attend, so it is just me.
Wait, you got full out 2 hosts? I know. B, who's
I
Gina?
know. I'm real special. Not just one person.
God.
I got 2.
Y'all got a budget. Y'all coming up around here. Y'all
Hey, now we gonna have like it's gonna be like the Supreme Court's gonna be 9 of us up here.
Cut me in and cut it out.
And yeah, we are here today to discuss if Black folks should just get their asses the fuck over slavery.
I don't even
So
like how you said that. I don't like how you said
I'm
that.
saying it inflammatory for the very
Just to
reason I'm
piss
saying
me off.
inflammatory.
Just to piss me off.
Yes,
That's what you're doing
yes.
here. It's working. It's working.
It's not a
At
good
first it was
show.
those Negroes in the video. That's it.
I'm glad I could be of service. So obviously, I have my favorite mortal enemy, 2 Salt Water from the Herb and 2 Thuggery.
God damn it, man. Intellectual thuggery.
Y'all changed your name. I'm sorry. Intellectual Thuggery. They come on. Actually, I don't know what time y'all come on anymore, but they do come on
Me either,
Patreon
so don't let
and
me get
YouTube.
lied to you.
Well, go to their Facebook page to see their schedule because clearly the co-hosts don't know when they come to fuck on.
I think we come on tomorrow and Saturday.
Okay. So go check them out. They are very interesting too. Always has interesting perspectives. As much as I hate him, I always, well, not always, but a high percentage of the time I do.
99.77789.
Like 75% of the time, I do agree with you.
I know.
And it be pissing me
How many
off.
times have I told you I'm the smartest person you know?
No. Every time. But enough about 2. Let's actually introduce our other alum. I haven't seen Jamal. I don't even know the last show you've been on, Jamal. Hey, Jamal, how you doing?
What's going on, good people? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited and enthused. I always believe there should be a black think tank, and I'm thinking this is it. Let's get it.
You mean like you and 2 go be the think tank?
Well, you surely would be invited.
Oh, can I be in? I can be included?
I'm just messing with you. I love that image of Buster back there, brother. That's dope.
John Jennings exclusive. That man put it together.
Super dope.
And you came in here repping all the ILL. ILL. You gonna just leave me out here hanging?
You know how we get down. Oh, you want the I and I on the back end? I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna be here by myself, ILL, and that's fine. Okay, so gentlemen, I handpicked both of you guys. I mean, obviously we handpicked all of our guests, but as soon as I thought of this topic, there was no way I could talk about this without having each of you on here because I knew that you guys would bring some really high quality, I don't have a better word, perspectives on this subject. And we're kind of going to dive in. So we saw that video. I guess I'll start with 2. Why was the video pissing you off, 2?
Because coons be cooning, niggas be nigging. You know what I mean? I'm sick of them. You know what I mean? I'm a revolutionary, right? And at the end of the day, I don't know, man. I think post 1970, we've kind of introduced this kind of new idea, new understanding of blackness, right? And I don't think we fully had even ingratiated into the old understanding. So the new understanding is really far-fetched for me.
Well, I mean, that's a whole show in and of itself. So don't make me dive into blackness.
Focus
that
on
is
your
actually, I may take that topic. You may have to come back. Jamal, did you have any feelings about the video? Because he was over here seething, just like, girls, fucking niggas, blah, blah, blah. Like,
she had a whole damn Trump outfit though. What am I supposed to do with that?
Some black people wear Trump stuff. We are not a monolith. We say that all the time. And then be surprised when
we are a monolith. Stop it. Yes, we are. I hate y'all listening to these white talking points. Do the math. We're a monolith.
Oh, Lord. Jamal, were you riled up from the video? Were you feeling a bit?
I was not. It was everything I had expected it to be. But you know what? I was pleasantly surprised by the young folks and how they intelligently rebutted the crazy rhetoric of the first 2. So I was really impressed until the end when the sister said, you know, we got to get white folks to blah, blah, blah. It's like, come on.
Wait, what did she say? Because I was too busy talking to him. I missed it. What did she say?
No, seriously, I was saying I was very impressed with what the young folks had to say. And until the sister said, we need white folks too, or whatever, that just threw me off because it's not about them anymore. It's not. But there is this overall reckoning we have to have with slavery. And the young dude said it best. We haven't even begun talking about it. We haven't really digested the legacy of black people in America, man. And it goes so much further than 1619 to 1863. So that's just the beginning. And it didn't really end in 1863. But we got talking points.
Or 2023.
Talk about it. Let's go. It's
on.
changed. It's shifted, but it's still going down. And we really need to have a firm discussion about what is happening to us, what has happened to us, and what we need to do about it.
All right, y'all bringing up other show topics that we can have y'all back for, but let's focus.
I told you I only want to come back for the ratchet conversation.
Oh, that's right. I can only bring him back for like fuckery. Which is funny because somebody else on our show was like, "You only bring me on for the fuckery. I would have come on for the serious shit." I'm like, what is wrong with y'all? But anywho, let's talk about the subject at hand, right? Jamal, I feel like it's like the $10,000 question. Should black folks just get the fuck over slavery? And if so, how the fuck do we do that?
Am I on the time limit here?
You're always on the time limit because you will talk the whole fucking hour.
Click the red light when you're ready for me to wrap it up. All right. So, I mean, listen, let's just start with the numbers, right? 1619, 1863, that's 244 years of dehumanization, 244 years of abject torture, 244 years of rape, murder, and mental debilitation. Supposed to just get over that, right? Okay. 1863 to 2023, that would only be 160 years of freedom if we really was not counting what actually happened from 1863 to 2023. So 244 years of torture versus 160 years of freedom. That's a 2/3 difference for those keeping count. However, there's 84 more years of terroristic treatment going on, right? From 1863 to almost 1970, we got madness jumping off. Overt madness, black codes, Jim Crow segregation, the regeneration of slavery through our injustice system. So if we're really talking, it's 1968 to 2023 that we have this almost ability to have dominion over our lives. That's 55 years of freedom compared to 349 years of rape, murder, disparate treatment. How long does it take to get over that? How do you get over that?
That's what I'm asking you.
Hey, whatever the answer is to those two questions, understand none of that has occurred, right? Absolutely nothing has been done. And the only things that have been done is in the contrary to our Herculean efforts to improve our lives and guide our thoughts. That's the only thing that has occurred. So we got 349 years of experimentation going on us. Nothing has been done except for folks telling us to get over it. So then let's talk about what happened to black folks, right? What it actually is.
All right, we got another person.
All right,
I rock with it. Let him rock, man. He's doing his thing. I rock with it. I'm in total agreement.
I'll wrap up with this. Anytime any person is experimented on, I don't know about you guys, during my collegiate days, I would do the psychological experiments. You get paid $100. It was an easy way to pick up some cash. Every time you went through an experiment, you would get this thing called a debriefing. It would occur immediately afterwards, so you know exactly what had happened to you, especially when the experiment would involve some type of deception. They made sure they debriefed you and made you fully aware of how you was taken advantage of, because it provides participants an explanation of what was being tested, the procedures that was used to deceive them, and the reasoning behind what happened to you. Black folks have never been debriefed. And to this day, any attempt to debrief us has been opposed and fought wholeheartedly. That's why this whole critical race theory boogeyman is some BS. It's just to stop the debriefing, because that is how you make people whole. I'll pause and come back.
All right. All right. How you gonna follow that up?
I ain't got to do all that preaching now.
2,
Quick
should
answers.
we get over slavery? And if we should, how the fuck do we do that? After Jamal so eloquently said we were tortured, raped, experimented on, we were chattel, given no rights, couldn't have our name, couldn't have our language. Like, how do we get over that?
So we live in this kind of like therapy-centric kind of society.
Okay.
One of the key tenets of therapy to get over anything is you must first address it. We've not addressed it.
What do you mean by we haven't addressed it?
I mean, exactly that. We've not addressed it. From the American government standpoint, we've not addressed it. There's never even been a public apology from the American government for slavery, let alone retribution for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my problem with these kind of conversations coming from black folks is that we've assimilated so far into white culture that our ignorance is our burden, right? I make this a statement all the time, is that it's not very many black people in America. It's just a bunch of dark-skinned white people. And from the looks of that video, is what you see is a bunch of dark-skinned white people. They're conditioned to be, move, think, and act like white people. So first, you can't get over it because you don't even know what the fuck it was. You don't even have an understanding of it, which is why you're reliving it every day today. right? Because you think you're over it. You think you're beyond it. You think you share the same opportunities as the white guy who grew up down the street as you. They're not. When I was a young child, this is an experience I never forget. It was a white dude begging by the expressway or some shit. You know how that go, whatever, panhandler. And I gave the dude $1. And my father lost his shit. My father said, don't you ever give a white man shit. Ever. You hear me?
I heard you. I'm trying to write this question down because something just came to me. Keep talking.
And he was like, he could have been the president. Could you?
No.
My point exactly. Like, my father was rooted in a different understanding of blackness, right? We come to the conversation proudly calling ourselves people of color, or, you know, running from the heritage of American slavery because we don't have any understanding of it, i.e. why we want to get over it so bad because we never wanted to address it in the first place. We align ourselves with white ideas, white thought, because we be conditioned by white society. That's all our values are shaped through the lens of whiteness.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I say here regularly that Black folks just are marginalized white folks. I say that all the time. So do I think we should get over slavery? If I had to boil it down to one word, I would say yes. And here's what I mean by we need to get over slavery. We need to get over our aversion of acknowledging that we come from slaves. We need to get over these white talking points about there's too many slave movies when one comes out every 10 years. We need to get out of these spaces of acknowledging our past, right? Like, we like to skip over slavery like it was, I don't even know, like a very small blip of time. And I've always seen slavery, right, as our birth. Yes, we came from Africa. Yes, we like to say we from kings or queens. There were very few of them. Most of us came from working level, religious level Black folks, right? Yes, we came from that. That's not a lie. But any therapist will tell you the moment you were traumatized, that's when you are formed. And to me, Black people in America, that's the moment we became who we are. And there's to me, we need to start looking at celebrating that. We need to find some honor in that. There are people who bled and died on this land. Their blood is in this soil. And I always push back on Black people. And I think you said that this is not our land. And I say, fuck that. There's no way my ancestors' bones are in this soil and this is not my land. So we need to start changing how we see slavery. We need to change our relationship with slavery. And I think, to me, that's how I would say we need to get over slavery. Not get over the trauma, but just get over our aversion to
So obviously
slavery.
you've been listening to Herb and Tools Intellectual
That's
Thuggery,
not true. I
and
have
you've
my
been
own brain
selling
and
our
my
own
own
talking
thinking.
points. But I would agree with you in some sense, but I don't think we need to get over it. I will agree with you in wholeheartedly that we need to celebrate it. I want to say this too, right? When you think about America in general, right? I don't say we from Africa. I don't identify with that concept, right? And then even how we talk about Africa, right? Africa's a continent.
Right.
When you start to break that shit down culturally, like what country, what tribe, and
Right.
that creates a different identity in itself.
Right.
You know what I mean? When Nigerians from the from any tribe, let's put it like that. I want to specifically point out a tribe, are talking about their understanding of identity. They don't say we're Africans.
Right. They say whatever
the
the tribe
However
they're
that breaks
from or
down,
whatever country
right.
they're from.
So
yeah.
in that vein, we're just a subsidiary of a new tribe, right? So I do identify with America as being our motherland.
Mm.
It was the start. And when you think about that in context, right? America's a small country. We're 12% of the American population. So we're a small country and a small population in a small country. But our ideas and our energy dominate the creative energies of the world. The entire diaspora follows our lead. I don't know what the fuck is going on in Ghana. They know what the fuck is going on here, though.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So with that being said, there is power in that energy that was created here on this soil. It's power that deserves respect. But to the point of even having this conversation, do we get over it? No, we don't.
I just want to be
We
clear.
build an identity out of it.
I just want to be clear. I'm not saying to get over slavery, the trauma that came from it, and all of the subsequent white supremacist acts that have come out of it, right? What I'm saying is Black people have a deep aversion to slavery. Now, we like to use it when it benefits us, right? When some white person get on our nerves, we'll throw slavery in their face all day long. But if we actually had to think about
Just
what
like a
meant from
Becky
slavery,
in the park, right?
yeah,
Like,
we have
because we're dark-skinned white people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. But what I'm saying is we need to get over this disconnect we have with like this pushback. Like, nah, I'm not a slave. I mean, yeah, my people were slaves, whatever. But I don't need to focus on that. I don't need to learn about that. I think that's where we fall short. So that leads me into my next question. I'll bring Jamal back in here. You know,
Hey, I had some points on your previous point, though. Can I touch two things both of y'all touched that I think was very profound? I may have a little pushback on it. I just wanted to put it out there. So, the first thing you said, Sean, when you got to the part about recognizing the birth of us as Americans or whatever, and then embracing this thought that slavery may not be it shouldn't be so angrily pushed upon, right? That sometimes you need to understand the origins and just embrace the origins for what they are. I think my pushback on that was that when you talked about the whole African king and queen, for lack of a better term, mythology that's being pushed by, most Black folks that, hey, we're kings and queens and all this. The real piece was when you hit and you said, no, they were a religious grouping of folks who were farmers and living their life. I think slavery minimizes all of that. The people who came over to create this origin of Black folks, just like Tu said, was this amalgamation of so many different countries, so many different ethnicities, so many different cultures, that origin story does have its beginnings in Africa. And it's so important. This is where I think I push back on you two a little bit, that we continue to claim that land. Like, you're right. I don't know which land. I couldn't even say which part, but I know I got some ownership over there. And it's the most fertile, profitable land, and it's still catching hell because it's colonized. Like, you're talking about dark-skinned white folks. Well, they're there too, right? I mean, they didn't just do this in America. It's happening all over the globe. But the point is that when it comes to land, which is rules today, we have to be mindful to keep it. That's why I'm a big fan of the term African American. I'll deal with Black because in the 60s and 70s, hey, James Brown said it was good for us. Malcolm said it was good. I'm with you. Them dudes get to make some laws and say how we identify ourselves, which I really believe is another sticking point that we have to have a conversation on. One of our major issues is how we see ourselves, which is why it's so easy for us to become dark-skinned white folks, because we have no foundation of who we are. But my last piece to what has already been said was this ideology that this land ownership, right? So if we really got back to the elders' view of land, it was almost Native Americanish. Land is land. It's ours. It ain't everyone's. And so we do have this selfish, controlling, exploitive, westernized ideology of colonizing and taking over. But that's not the majority of the world. But unfortunately, it's not the majority of the world, which allowed a small percentage of folks to really just, all right, well, we're about taking land. So what you gonna do? Man, you can't take this. What are you talking about? You can live there. Next thing you know, they took the land. So I just want to make sure that when we get to what I like to call the Son and Bunham, the greatest good, and it's really not that westernized ideology, which you guys both touched upon. But more importantly, it's about this reckoning with, well, what is the right way to proceed and to be a part of this society, right? And it's really to cultivate the rest to believe this is the way things should go. But I'll sit tight on that. Let's hit that second question.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh. I actually had some pushback, but to your point, I'm going to keep us moving forward. So one of the things I pointed out is that we have a aversion, is probably the best word, to discussing and even acknowledging slavery, right, as part of our history. Is that a trauma response too? Do you think it's a trauma response that we are so adverse to claiming or owning that aspect of our legacy? Or is this just white supremacist talking points?
I think it's a both and, right? And I don't know if it's a trauma response just to slavery. It's a trauma response to the experience that we're experiencing today, right? So there's still not been a value adjustment or a value claim to the essence of Blackness. So even if you were born yesterday, you're not going to feel valuable in the lexicon of American society. So why would you look back at the trajectory of your history and try to adapt to a value that you know what I mean? That's not what America pushes. Like Jamal just talked about critical race theory. The fact that that's a conversation in the lexicon is insane to me.
And nobody actually knows what it is.
It's not even logical though.
I agree.
Right? It's not even a logical thing, right? So why it's not I don't think it's an aversion to slavery, it's an aversion to black existence. And that's a different conversation. So even when Jamal broke down the first statement he made, he was so eloquent. He said, that's 244 years. Then he did the math again. And he left off like 68 to 2023. But you could you could sprinkle a whole bunch of more shit right up and through there.
Well, he did say between 68 and 2023, that was the time we could on some level advance. Now, yes, we still have redlining and what did Clinton do? I forgot.
And I'd argue,
we had a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And I'd argue that's what I mean about the ongoing trauma. I'd say that's a fallacy, right? I'd say that's a fallacy. We believe it, but look at the wealth. Look at the math, right? The numbers say we got less wealth today than we had in 1963 when you couldn't drink at the same goddamn water fountain. So yeah, you could talk. It seems one way. You got videos on the box or whatever on YouTube. You got 10 niggas with some money, but the existence of black life in America ain't no different. Right, the baby boomers was the largest wealth accumulating population of black culture ever on the history of this land. They dying, right? Our grandparents had houses. We don't, not in mass.
That's true.
We're losing wealth, right? So, and think about what's gonna happen on the other side of that totem pole. As the white baby boomers die, the wealth that those people are going to accrue is going to change the trajectory of even what black poverty looks like right now. It's going to be a whole different ball game in 10 years. You think it's bad now. Wait for 10 years when those white Gen Xers start to inherit all of their parents' wealth.
What do you leaning and thinking that is going to happen?
The gap is going to widen.
Okay.
Right? So when we're looking at inflation today, we're like, damn, eggs cost $8. Well, if this entire population is like, I got that. There's no need to push back against it. And the only population that's not going to have it is our black ass. Because we're not going to reap any benefits of that death of the baby boomer generation. Right? We used to have big family reunions. We don't do that shit no more. We used to think about this, how this shit trickles down. I often say government dictates your relationship. You used to push back against that shit. Mm-hmm. Think about when you were a child and Thanksgiving came around. It would be 30, 40 people in my grandmama's house.
That's true.
When's the last time you had one of them experiences? And maybe you have because you might have a special family, but think about all the families who don't have it.
I know
how uncommon it is today in society.
I understand what you're saying. I happen to come from both of my sides of family are fairly large, so I do go to large Thanksgiving events, but like my boyfriend, right? It's just him and his sister. They don't do that. So to your point, that's not really a tradition that's really kept alive amongst black people.
Hear what I'm saying though. That's the same way slavery affects us, or the responses from slavery affect us, or the responses from white supremacy affect us. We start taking this on as personal accountability. That's not real. What's happening is the economics of the community is changing. No one can afford to feed 30 motherfuckers no more.
Gotcha.
Right? You don't have a house no more. You're renting an apartment now. What grandmama you know can fit 20, 30 motherfuckers in the house? Because the grandmamas is our generation at this point.
Because they have an apartment. They can't.
It's not a real thing, but we don't calculate that as part of how government is moving, how black access is dwindling, how we're losing capital. We don't think of it like that. We say it's personal accountability. We just don't hang out as a family no more. No, that's not true. There's been systems created to stop you from doing those things. So the aversion is not just slavery, it's black life in general.
So you think there's an aversion to black life, period?
Absolutely.
To being black.
What benefit is it? Name one. You could dance.
You can fry some chicken.
And the Arabs doing that now. I'm
rolling. I'm rolling. All right, Jamal.
Yeah, so when you mentioned this topic to me, I started to think of some talking points and what I wanted to get across, and then of course that idea of trauma jumped out to me real big, and so I wanted to look it up. What do you do when people face considerable trauma, right? And how do you even classify trauma? Because we're talking about getting over slavery. In my mind's eye, there's no bigger trauma. And then when you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder being transferable from one generation to the next, I'm like, well, we have to handle trauma. How do they say handle trauma? So when you look it up, a traumatic event, of course, is anything shocking, scary, a dangerous experience that can affect someone emotionally and physically. All right, check. We checked that, right? A response to trauma can be immediate or delayed, brief or prolonged. Okay, we get that checked. So if trauma has all these effects that make you worry, become anxious, become fearful, have you crying, you can't think clearly, you're frightened about certain things, you have flashbacks, you become triggered, you have feelings of angriness, resentfulness, irritability, nightmares, can't sleep right, you start to avoid places, people, disturbing memories, which is a point to your folks not wanting to watch the movies. You become isolated from family and friends at times, right? So over time, you can't even be the person that you thought you would be. Some of the physical response, you get headaches, your stomach, your digestive system's bad, you're feeling tired all the time, you're in fight or flight too much of your time in your life, and then even worse, you start to self-medicate, right? We talk about how drugs and alcohol has permeated the community. Well, I mean, it was almost like we were conditioned for this, right? So that was my first thing, was to just look at what the trauma looks like. And then, well, I needed to know what do you do with that trauma, right? What happens? And they sort of said there's a couple of types of therapy that's supposed to happen immediately once trauma is diagnosed. And again, we're talking about getting over slavery, and nothing has occurred to this point, right? 2023, nothing has happened. So we've been dealing with these effects of trauma on our own. That's the one independent and autonomous thing we've had, and we're suffering from it. Even the best of us are suffering from it. The worst of us are suffering from it. I mean, it's everywhere. You can see the symptomology and residual effects of this trauma every day in us. But they said this is what should happen. First thing is called exposure therapy. When you experience the traumatizing events that force you to avoid a scene, make you have bad memories, or you have these constant reminders of an incident, they say you got to find a mental health professional to guide you through a detailed retelling of the event, which goes back to that debriefing piece, right? Like, you have to know what happened, why it happened, and how it's going to affect you. You got to know those
suggesting
things.
we should have a mass therapy session for all Black people?
So you know me in therapy, I'm not a fan of it. I don't even push it, but I'm saying there has, and here's my piece, I will always say it's education, right? There has to be this information that changes our behavior. Somebody has to put this in a way that we can digest it, make sense of it, and move on from it, if we're going to move on. Because we do have to move on, but it only can happen by embracing the understanding of what happened. Then there's this thing called cognitive therapy, right? After living through a traumatizing events, and it becomes easy to see the danger everywhere, they say you got to you got to have this cognitive processing therapy that teaches you to examine and change upsetting thoughts that you may have because of the stressful experience, right? So they said there's this exposure therapy and cognitive therapy. We don't get any therapy, right? As a matter of fact, when we start talking about the time period of 1968 to 2023, we go through the years of some presidents like Reagan and Nixon who just wiped out all social services and removed any chances of anyone being able to receive any type of diagnosis to what may be happening to them personally. And here's my other piece. You know, when we talk about this, the legacy of Black people, shout outs to the survivors, right? The fact that we are even here to have this conversation says there were some people so strong that we were able to even be able to have be able to exist at this moment. Like, I was really upset in the Black Panther when your boy Killmonger said, yeah, throw me over the boat and let me, yeah, then we don't exist. If everybody has that mentality, we're not here today. Shout outs to those folks who was able to endure and allow for us to even keep forging on, so that we went from, I think it was 300,000 to 6 million or whatever the number is. But yeah, shout outs to that. So that's what I'm on in regards to this whole therapy piece. I'm not a therapy guy, but there definitely needs to be some type of indemnification, and it comes with education.
So can that be indemnification? Ooh, that is a big word. I don't know what it means, but I'm gonna use it today. Could
To
that
make whole.
huh?
To make whole.
To make
Like,
whole.
so
Okay,
you've
so
been
that's
injured, you want to get back to whole.
that condemnification. Anyway, to make us whole, right? We talked a large conversation about reparations.
Mm.
And while I am in agreement that we need to be paid for the work of our ancestors, they never got their money, so we should. Is that really going to make us whole too? Like, is if we get reparations and they say, my bad, we sorry. We sorry about that whole 200 years of slavery and Jim Crow. Our bad. We suck.
The only thing that's gonna make us whole is to have a different relationship with an understanding of our identity. But right?
Run me my money.
But run me that bread.
Yes.
And what the bread does do is take us off the edge of survival to give us room to find ways to love ourselves.
Should white America, I know what the answer is going to be, but I got to ask this stupid ass question. Should white America foster that? Should they put mechanisms in place for us to figure out what blackness is? And how the fuck do we even figure out what blackness
what they
is?
should do is write the check.
And then
we'll take it from there.
Okay. Say fuck these white people.
Yeah.
Jamal, will reparations make us, that big ass word that I can't repronounce that was so fancy, make us whole?
So I don't think so. I think when we talk about being a people, being white folks and blackface or what have you, that we won't do the things necessary with that money. It'll be a temporary solve. I'm shocked white America didn't do it because they can easily say, no, we paid you. You know what I'm saying? And be done. And then they could really be over it by saying, no, we gave you some money. But then the amount of money we're asking for starts to fluctuate. So that's why I think the conversation isn't happening. But this whole idea that white folks need to is why we continue to struggle. Listen, I don't know any conquered folks who were saved by their conquerors, right? Who thinks their enemy is going to all of a sudden, and I'm not saying all white folks are our enemy, and I don't even want to get into that conversation, but the point is, if you truly believe in this construct called race and how it's been defined, and that there's these different teams based on skin tone, then why are you expecting this other group based with another skin tone who plays by these rules to all of a sudden do something for us, right? So the key is, well, how does an afflicted person fix themselves? And I say that's a daunting task, of course, but then we know if we go back to these the vestiges of slavery, the slaves taught themselves how to read, freed themselves, taught their skills, got skills, did everything necessary. When we were in the Jim Crow segregation and schooling was basically outlawed in the South, Black folks had 97 of the 116 day and night schools because we was about that action. And usually it was based off of the adversity of the time, right? We've always responded well. Unfortunately, and I love Dr. Carol Anderson's book, White Rage. She speaks to how white folks have always responded to our Herculean efforts with more adversity and disparate treatment. But the point is, to me, yeah, I'm not even thinking about reparations. It's not the piece, right? What's really the piece is, I think what Toos was saying, is coming together with a better understanding of who we are. And that it's that understanding that will unite us. Because right now, we're trying to unite under skin tone. And we know that everybody of the same color ain't a brother, right? We get that. And we know that there's many Black folks and white face that it just ain't about it. So the real question is, well, what do we allege on? And then that has to be, like the standard mission, vision, principles, goals, and objectives. Once we have our values aligned, once we have an understanding of what's necessary and important, then everything else takes care of itself. But we're not trying to lead under that. We keep doing it on the skin color, and we keep finding ourselves coming up short.
Not that I don't understand that. I agree, right? I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I also think we sometimes have antiquated ideas about how to attack problems, right? The world is shifting. The world is changing. How we intake information is different, right? We have 24-hour access to corporatism in our fucking front pockets every day. That's new. That's new for the world. You understand me? White supremacy is in alignment under the auspices of obtaining capital. That's it, right? So now we have we intake information different. So when Jamal says, "No, I ain't with all that shit," because we got to find a way to love ourselves, and we do that by ourselves without their help. And I fully grasp that, right? But that's in a world that didn't have 24-hour access to corporatism in your front fucking pocket. that's in a world that had some understanding of a community, even if it's in rejection of what the white world won't allow you to do. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We don't have none of that shit anymore, right? None of it. So how do you one get the attention of the human being first to find a way to love themselves, right? I could legitimately make an argument right now that the conversation around gender dysmorphia, around
Yikes.
no, I'm dead ass and say all these are symptoms of the same thing.
Yikes. Just the
Right.
wording, yikes.
They're all symptoms of the same thing. So to think that we as a people will respond differently than a person that thinks they're a woman when they're a man, I think you're foolish. I think we have to come of age with our ideas and how to affect it. And that's why I said, yeah, I know we got to love ourselves, but run me my motherfucking money. And running me my money ain't about just running me my money. It takes me off the edge of survival. And that gives you room to love you.
At least even for the moment. I agree. I will push back. I do think there's something white people can do. Don't white people, right? We know what happens when Black people are allowed to flourish, when they build their own communities, when they build their own wealth. White people get alarmed and they start to try to squelch it. Stay your ass over there. White people over there where you white people, stay out of the way. That would be the one thing I would say white
You
people
got an
can do.
offensive audience, Vanita Griffin.
I'm sorry, what? What's happening? I think that person just read the title and just kind of, went on a tangent there. But I mean, that would be the one thing I would encourage white people to do. Just stay out the fucking way. Go to the suburbs, do your thing. Let white people, have Black people have their money and figure it out. But I guess too, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I
Go
think in response to that we don't want to live together. Black
Who
folks
don't wanna
don't
live
like Black
together?
folks, right?
Who doesn't
So
wanna live
ain't no
together?
white folks trying to stop us from living together nowadays. As a matter of fact, they're like, go on, do your thing. And we're trying not to. We're really still trying to live with them. And so that's where I guess I get to that whole
I disagree with that.
Really?
Absolutely. I think white
Talk
people
about
still
it.
have that same kind of mentality right now. It's not like it was for Tulsa and all the other towns and communities that were burned to the ground, right? But what we have to remember is colonization is still a fucking thing. It's just called gentrification now. And it acts in the same way. They come into these communities and try to diversify them. I live in South Shore, and that's what the fuck white people are trying to do
That's
now.
what Toos was talking about when he said
Yeah.
it's all financial though. I mean, that's the make. But where's the most inexpensive property that I could get in the hood? Hey, it's right next to downtown. Hey, everybody move to the suburbs. Let's move those folks back to the inner city. Now, what I'm saying is, like right now, there's a ton of land in Wyoming. If a bunch of Black folks wanted to go out and live with Black folks and start a community and create industry, they could, but ain't nobody trying to do that. Nobody's trying to make that up, especially if you've gone through the auspices to make a little money yourself. Because if you and that's why I was really heated about the recent Chris Rock comedy special when he did a whole little 15 minutes about I'm rich. I live with white folks. I watch white folks jog. That's where my kids go to school with. I mean, and that's not just him. That joke resonated with a lot of folks, and folks are fighting tooth and nail so that they could get next to some white folks because that's when you have actually made it, or that's where it's safe, or whatever the case may be. But I'm saying on the reverse end of that, back in the day when there was communities such as Rosewood and what have you, well, that was a situation of necessity, right? If you want to survive, sort of what Toos was saying, if you want to eat, man, hunger was the leading factor during after freedom for incarcerating Black folks, right? I mean, just pure starvation and vagrancy because we didn't own land. We couldn't get a job without some white folks signing us up. And so we ended up in prison, which was the only place you could really get a bite to eat, as malnourished as they made you there. And then they worked you to your bones again like you were just back in slavery. But the point is that until we get to a point where we feel a certain way about each other, which is getting further and further away, I know nothing against y'all, but I know how freely we like to identify each other as niggas, right? And when we say, oh, it ain't no term of endearment. We never mean it in the right way. We mean it just like everyone else meant it. And we're trying to define ourselves in the worst of circumstances. And it's amazing to me, right? And then we try to flip that later. Say, I love you. Nah, that ain't love. I don't know what that is. And until we can make that love, until we can actually embrace, let me just be honest. I don't even, again, I sort of hinted to this idea that our skin tone will allegiance us is crazy to me. First, some sick guys in the 1800s, sick white folks, created the auspices of races, made it. Race didn't exist until slavery was about to be ended because they had to legitimize keeping black folks as slaves. And then so when they created this thing, if we're going to try to break the rules of this game, why do we continue to play under their rules? Why do we keep allowing them to use one of the most inconsequential of features to define our whole mentality? Now, I do get that with black folks, we got this cheat code, right? We should agree. We should be on the same plane, and we should be able to use skin to identify that, yeah, you know what we've been through, but that ain't the case. We get that, right? And that's due to the misinformation that's put out there, and even the self-hate that generates from being indoctrinated in the state of in the United States. So with all that being said, we have to find something that binds the tie deeper, something that is indelible and you can't deny it, because skin tone is as irrelevant as the size of our feet. You know, everybody with a size 10 or better is intelligent. 10 or higher is intelligent. If your shoe size is less than 10, you're unintelligent. If somebody said that, we laugh at them, that's dumb. But hell, that's what craniometry was that defined the races, right? We look at some skulls, put bullet pellets in it, and now we know who's Negroid, Africanoid, Caucasoid, and whatever else they came up. We don't even use those terms anymore. As a matter of fact, when we talk race, there's only two colors, black and white, and everybody else is a nationality. Nationalities make sense. People from the same land with the same culture, they sort of believe similarly. But color? Come on, man. We could all get in one room.
I would push back. I understand what you're saying, right? That color can't be our unifier, but I would disagree. Like, if we don't use the fact that we are descendants of slaves, right? Or that we come from Africa, or that we have melanin in their skin, what is another unifying? What else would unify us? All of us lead varying lives. All of us have different incomes. All of us live.
The binding factor isn't color, though. The binding factor is it's slavery.
It's slavery. Okay.
That is the specific justice claim, right? That's what I was saying, right? It isn't color. I would agree with that, right?
Okay.
You can go to Dunkin' Donuts and see people darker than me. You know what I mean? But they don't have my experience.
Fair.
You know what I mean? So I agree with that.
But then it would disconnect us from Caribbeans. It would disconnect us from.
We should be disconnected from
Americans.
Caribbeans. We should be. It's not the same experience. It's a different justice claim. We should be. This is a unique tribe.
Okay.
And what if they decided to join us? Like, say the Caribbean said, you know what, Jamaicans, we had that same thing happen over here. We understand. We're with you. What's the plan? Then that's genuine. That's real. As opposed to just assuming, hey, the Jamaicans are dark skinned too. Hey, brother, fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to say skin tone is the binding factor, I mean, it's definitely the cheat code. It should tell us, hey, it should be obvious, but it ain't. And it's not even true. I mean, how many black Republicans we got in front of the microphone yelling out whatever they yell out, right? And conservative, like the two folks who came on the show in the beginning, that was 5 black people in there. 2 of them said, yeah, get over slavery. One had American flag up and down on her whole body because she's really ready to assimilate. So come on, man. I mean, we could keep playing the same game that we've been playing since 1863, no, 1968, no, 2023, the same game we've been playing, and we're wondering why the results haven't changed. We need to change the rules. We have the ability to change the rules. And if we quit looking to others and start looking to the right people who are thinking the right way, we don't need everyone. We just need a few to get it right. We could flip this whole thing upside down. Other folks will join in once the momentum catches.
So how do we get there? I mean, you guys have kind of danced around it. Like, we need to love ourselves. We need to, like, what are the steps we can take to get us to love ourselves? We know money. Run us our bread.
The right folks with the money.
Run us our money. What else?
I don't
Is it
think,
barbecues? Is it
like, we make a lot of this shit, right? But and again, my brother Jamal went on a long tangent. There's a lot of shit he said in it that I don't agree with. I just let him rock.
I agree.
I just let him rock, man. But you know, we get into these like existential ideas of what could get us here, what could get us here. Making a fucking decision gets you there.
A decision about what?
Loving yourself. Period. Period. All of you, all facets of you, right? And that's what I mean about when you come to the conversation. What was the original question you asked? Like, would you title the show?
Do black people need to get the fuck over slavery? Yeah.
That in itself is a flawed idea because that in itself erases our identity. That is where our identity started, right? When you go into Black History Month in any little black grammar school in Chicago, and the shit you came out where we come from kings and queens. Mm-hmm. Listen. Go put Mom's Maybe Uncle Jim Buck on the door. Because them was amazing motherfuckers.
Absolutely.
Right? And they deserve value. But what we do is we create these idealized versions of who we are, and that's not who we are. So how could you ever love yourself if you don't even know yourself? You got to make a fucking decision and commit to knowing yourself and finding ways to love yourself. It ain't that fucking difficult. Only reason I believe in the concept of reparations to take us off of the edge of survival, right? Oftentimes our disillusion is rooted in poverty. I'm hungry. I'm starving. Black death is profitable. Being a coon is profitable. Being submissive is profitable. Staying away from blackness is profitable. To put that Trump shit on that Trump outfit that sister had on, got her on that video. That was her value. You understand what I'm saying? That was her fucking value.
Really
she was chosen for that reason. I'm not, but I get it. Right? I get it. Right? Think about it. Kanye wears blackness as a cape until he wants to take that bitch off.
Yeah, you're right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Don't we all though?
That's the problem. We all wear it just to take it off. Wearing it is the value.
But how can we, too, at the top of this thing, you said we don't know what blackness is, right? And I would agree with you. We do not know what blackness is outside of being the opposite of white people. And we don't even understand that thoroughly because we're too busy trying to, in effect, be white. So how the fuck do we even figure out what blackness means? Because if you ask anybody what blackness means, right? What does being black mean? You would say poor. You would say a lot of things that are negative. You wouldn't say wealth. You wouldn't say none of the monikers of a culture would ever pop up. It would be a lot of negative free. So what the fuck is even being black?
So I don't agree with you.
Okay.
Right. And therein lies the problem. The fact that you come to the conversation with that connotation or that would be the average thought process. I fully disagree with that.
You think if we polled 100 people walking down the street and asked them what's blackness, they wouldn't.
If we polled 100 people, I'm sure you would get a bunch of answers like yours. But I'm saying that is the problem. You understand me? I'm not saying that is the truth. That is the problem. But that is our truth because we don't invest in learning and understanding who we are.
We're saying the same thing, you know.
Okay, maybe I missed something.
Because I'm saying we don't know what blackness is because our version of blackness is what is not white. That's how we see blackness, as an opposition to whiteness. Instead of blackness standing on its own and having its own very clear definition, we're saying the same thing.
Right, because you've been educated by your captures.
Yes.
Right, we're having conversations about critical race theory as if that's a real fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There is no separate black history to American history. We are American history.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But therein lies the problem. We keep letting the oppressor identify us through his lens. You identify you, which is why I said it's just a fucking decision. Right? Period. We could be Negro Peens. I don't give a fuck what the name is. I'm not playing. Just decide upon what it is, set some standards, create the culture, and roll.
So
right?
I guess I'm asking you.
So what we've done is we align ourselves with white thought. This is why we keep losing. We align ourselves with white thought, right? We have this philosophy that chase capital because that is a white idea of value.
Right.
Chase capital, we can come back to the community. All you got to do is turn your head to the Asian over here and you realize that the Asian over here is chasing community to build capital, not the other way around. It's nuanced, right? Being Asian is more important than the capital. If we stay Asian, we'll get the capital. We want to get the capital and then wear or not wear the cape. Right. That's not how this game goes. It's a fucking decision. Kanye can't get up, and I'm keep using Kanye because I think Kanye is interesting to me, right? When he talks about my people, or he goes against the Jews and how we respond to it, right? When he talks about his people, he's talking about the other motherfuckers mentioned in Forbes, not your nigga ass. That's his people. He's been wearing the cape long enough to get associated with who he deems as his people. And when they fail him, he comes back to those of us who value him for real. Deion Sanders, I'm only coaching Jackson State to get to this real opportunity. Motherfucker, you've bypassed them already. You have greater worth than them already.
Talk that talk.
We all align on that. I should have had you on that show too.
No doubt. You missed that
But
one.
what the fuck is? But this leads me back to the original question, and we're gonna wrap this up in a second. What is blackness? Like Jamal, what if you were to sit and define blackness? What would it be? How would you define it?
Man, that's a tough question, right? So I told you when I accepted the term blackness, it was because of the elder said we're gonna be black. But if I had to choose my identity, and shout outs to Twos for that, because that's the real key. You be self-defined. Knowledge of self is everything, right? I'm African American. And again, because I want to connect myself to two landmass. I do never want to have any conversation about where I'm from and where I am. I own both of these, and I'm taking ownership of both of these in my capitalistic mindset. And I have to start dealing with that I've been trained to. I've been indoctrinated. So, but if we're going to decide what blackness is the survival of the diaspora. It's the survival of the trauma. That's what blackness is. It's the being. It's being here. Now, unfortunately, as with all things, there's some positive and negatives with surviving this trauma. And the major negative is that we haven't dealt with the trauma. So we get upset that blackness has its dark side, right?
But even that, for me, even the definition you just gave, or the explanation you just gave, is still rooted in response to
white.
Right? What about the rose that grows out the concrete? Why we just can't see it as beautiful? Why we just can't see it as well, look at this one. It's special because it grew out the concrete. No, it's fucking beautiful because it's fucking beautiful. That's your choice. It doesn't have to be in response to the concrete or the goddamn rose garden. I could just see this is beautiful. That's it.
Okay.
End of conversation.
But it's still a rose, though.
And what was created out of that trauma was motherfucking beauty that has dominated the goddamn global conversation, not just the black diaspora, the global conversation of human existence. We the coldest motherfuckers to walk this planet. You can't tell me no different. We kick everybody's ass. They like to label us in athletics and shit.
They do,
right?
You're right.
Every political engine or a push since motherfucking 1968 was designed off shit that started here. Right? It ain't just athletics. It's brilliance in this shit. It's beauty in this shit. We keep relating it to trauma.
That's your fault. What separates that from the African excellence, right? Like, you know, we can talk about the Ethiopians killing it in track and being athletically gifted or what have you. But what's allowed black folks to be the preeminent authority on,
not track,
lack of a better term, pop culture, right? So we hold that. Even black men as the essence of manliness, right? Which is weird, you know, as much as we've been through some shit, when they talk about black men, it's the template.
But Jamal, I would push back on that because a lot of how you all are seen were white supremacist narratives. The fact that you all have big penises, the fact that you all are hypersexual, the fact that you all are good in bed. I love how you just like, well, I'll take that white supremacist narrative.
I ain't saying that. No, I'm saying you're right. I'm disagreeing
But
with
those are white supremacist narratives that you all have leaned into because it has benefited you all for all these years. So I would argue we really need to start. I would say to the response to my question that no one knows. No one knows what blackness is. Because if you look at how you even analyze blackness, to Tu's point, it's in response to whiteness. And I'm not saying that's bad or good.
Hold it.
But what I am saying is that's the case.
No, but my point to this, Sean, is that earlier I said in 1863, classism has always ruled the day, right? It was all about the dollar, and slavery had put America on the pinnacle of classism. Now they could touch hands with the rich elites across the world, and they didn't want to lose that, right? Slavery had just pushed America to that point, and so they hired some of the best professors of the day. Harvard professor, I can't even think of it, Samuel Morton, and said, "Hey, man, come up with a classification." And that's when Negroid was created, right? That's when race itself was created. Race didn't always exist. There was a time skin color always existed, but the real
race did not.
definition of a person, was based on class, right?
Mhm.
So then we get this thing called race, and that's where blackness was created. As a matter of fact, that's where whiteness was created. Whiteness didn't always exist, right? Whiteness was even based off of, you were Italian, you were Irish, you were not white. As a matter of fact, the whitest white person, the Irish, wasn't considered white until they had a liege with black folks as a working class and started to demand some rights. So all of a sudden we got this term mulatto being created because black folks and Irish folks are mixing at such a rate. There's this brown class coming up, and then they chopped it in half and said, okay, Irish folks, you know what? You're white too. As a matter of fact, Italians who used to catch hell, you're white too. Even Germans, you know what? You're white too. So to act like there is this definition for whiteness and blackness is crazy in itself, because it was only designed and created to be a tool of classism, divide the masses and allow the top 1% to have complete access and control of 70% of the resources. And now we're still arguing over race. We're still trying to discuss what it is that they created based on some dumb shit like craniometry, when the essence of it is, hey, it's just a tool. It's a tool to further classism. And then even worse, we've been so indoctrinated that we recognize that, yeah, we want to be a part of classism. How does this capitalism work? Let me make that coin too. And I feel
like, Jamal, I feel like you're kind of, and maybe I'm wrong too, you're kind of confirming what me and Tu are saying, even looking at it from a classist perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you were to define blackness, it would be the opposite of classism. it would be the opposite of the higher class, which we see the higher class as whiteness, right? We need to be clear about that. We see the whiteness, we don't see it. We see it as value system, as money, as access, as freedom. That's how we see whiteness. And if you look at blackness, if you are honest about how you see blackness, it would be the exact opposite of that.
So you got to stop counting me in your weed comment.
Well, fuck it, me then. Shit.
Stand on your that
no,
bullshit.
What I'm saying is we're saying the same as far as it. We juxtaposition against whiteness, and
I will grant you this.
Looking at it standing on its own. To Tu's point, there's a rose there. It's in the concrete.
My point is, you have a choice. I agree that the standard was set up to be the standard, right? Both of you are right in how the standards was created, right?
But you just got to pick and choose.
But you have the ability to say, you know what? Fuck your standard. I've decided that this is fucking beautiful.
I agree.
I've decided that this is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the conversation's over.
Tu, I agree with you.
Okay.
If black people just decided to be black and whatever comes with that and say fuck white people, which I say all the time, it would be what it's going to be. All right. I'm sure Jake is ready to go. We could argue about this all night. I'm sorry,
Vanita, you called me an idiot.
If
Vanita called me an idiot again, we're gonna be fighting. How about that, Vanita? How about that shit?
Why? What?
No, Vanita's my people.
Oh.
She might have been in your audience. And I feel offended, Vanita. You've never been in our audience over there. And I said what I said. I don't understand what's going on.
Because we're better than you.
Losers.
I was just in the class.
Y'all wear ascots over here and shit.
I have on a sweatshirt. Where I don't have no ascot. You talking about B?
It's still part of your show.
An ascot?
All right, man. Close your show, man. What are you doing?
Oh my God. Apparently we're closing with ascots. First of all, I don't think we solved anything, but I don't think that was the goal either, right? I think you have to have these conversations, right?
I make this shit harder than it is, though. I think I solved everything. Make the fucking decision to love you.
Yeah, but people...
It's not fucking rocket science.
But two, you have to approach people with the conversation to even have them start thinking in that
America
direction.
didn't confuse y'all motherfuckers, man.
Because I want to have a conversation.
Y'all think y'all got to have a gym membership to exercise? No, I'm dead ass, right? It's confused you, right? Corporatism has confused you. You think you need their access or someone else to validate you to believe. No. All you gotta do is make a decision and it's done. It's being done every day in our communities. The Arabs are doing it in our communities. The Asians are doing it in our communities. They're deciding every day. Y'all decide every day to act in opposition. When you see the Asians in our communities, they be in the strip mall doing nails. You can go to that nail shop for the next 30 years. You ain't gonna never see that motherfucker in that nail shop go right next door and eat the Harold's chicken. They've decided.
I think
that's all they're doing. Every day is deciding.
You're missing that whole. you're missing that whole second and third generation though too. So I'm in the high schools, man, and there's a lot
I
of
ain't
Asian
missing
kids.
it. I understand the power of America. I understand how the illusion is intoxicating, right? I understand in 10 years, Chinese people will have the same conversation we having today because they will no longer have Chinatown. I get it. To your point of the Italians, to your point of the Irish, but that's because you are hypnotized by the illusion of the idea of wealth and more and greed and bullshit. And the only reason any of that works is because you buy into it because you don't love you. You're not whole. And I don't give on what level you dealing it in. That's how the science of marketing works. I got to sell you on your own lack. That's how therapy works. That's why all this shit works, because you won't love yourself.
As I was going to interject that I don't disagree with you two, but people have to be approached with the conversation in order to get the wheels turning to start even imagining things like that. Because if you never talk about it, if you never bring the subject up, people will still keep going on the same path. These kind of conversations open people up to the idea of creating their own blackness or us creating our own blackness. Because without the conversation, who would be thinking about that? That's all I'm saying. I agree with you though. Jamal, thank you. You're a pleasure per usual. You weren't quite as, you were timing yourself. I'm proud of you. You must have had a stopwatch in front of you.
That's the time. That's the timetable, Jamal.
I'm telling you, he could have talked the whole
Jesus
fucking hour.
Christ. Nah, that's good money, man. I'm super tired. I'm ready to go.
Two, thank you for coming in.
Nah, I appreciate you for inviting me, but I only want to come back to the ratchet conversations. I'm sick of talking to you pseudo intellectual niggas.
Why I gotta be pseudo intellectual? Why you gotta come on my show and insult me? Do I come on
You
your show?
took offense with the pseudo intellectual.
I don't come on your show and insult you.
Jake, did she come on my show?
You took offense with the pseudo intellectual and not the nigga. Really? Come on, man.
I said what?
Does she always do this? Dig it back when I bring it over here. What the fuck?
God damn it. Well, thank you, In the Zone audience. I love talking to you guys. You guys have been quite fiery in the comments. There's some long ass comments up in here. You guys really were feeling this subject. And I don't know if you made a couple of enemies there too, and Jamal, but people
I don't give a fuck about making no enemy.
that was not the point of me bringing that up. All right. Well, thank you guys. We're going to wrap up next week. I actually have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, but I'll figure something out. Perhaps I will make B False. He was supposed to be in today, but he was too busy being a socialite. So perhaps we can get him in next week. And yeah. All right. Bye, guys.
Salam alaikum.